It's 5 o'clock, and someone's cell phone is on.
It says it's 5 o'clock. That's
Okay, Monday, April 19, 2021, Goldsboro City Council meeting is called to order. Madam Clerk.
Mayor Pro Tem Ham,
Here.
Councilmember Jones,
here.
Councilmember Broadway,
Here.
Councilmember Polak,
Present.
Councilmember Matthews,
Present.
Councilmember Aycock.
Here.
We're all here, and first item is, next item I should say, is adoption of the agenda. If there's any changes, additions, deletions anyone wants to make?
It's Mayor Pro Tem with no addition, but just would like the closed session moved up front, if it could be. The first thing before the old business, so we can do a closed session for economic development and potential litigation.
Move it up to in front of old business.
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion, we go into closed session for economic development and litigation.
Personnel matter as well.
Personnel matter as well.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, we're moving the closed session up. If not, then just
Move to adopt.
We already adopted.
all in favor, raise your hand.
We already did it.
Okay, all right,
Did y'all have a vote on the motion and the second for the
Yes, we
closed
did.
session? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
yeah, we did.
We're getting ready to go in there.
Okay, everyone, involved with the closed session, please give us the time we need here.
council and has council approval, that goes back into kind of the COVID timeframe. So here we are a year and a half later, still trying to make this a reality. We should have a presentation up here. Here we go. So Freedom Fest is a military and first responders appreciation festival. It is to be held downtown Goldsboro. The design is to bring the base and community together in a downtown setting. It looks like we just lost the technology, so we'll just keep going. And really to create a sense of one community. It's being planned and developed.
Hold on a second. Okay.
It's being planned and developed with strategic partnerships between the Goldsboro Elks. And this is the evolution of what started off life as the Wings of Wayne Military Appreciation Festival merged with Poultry Fest. So partnerships with the Elks, DGDC, the Base, Parks and Rec, Travel and Tourism, the Downtown Merchants Association, the Arts Council, and the Military Affairs Committee as part of the chamber. And this just gives you kind of a sense of some of the history. You can look through some shots and see kind of the format of what has been developed in years past. This gives you an idea of where we are today in terms of sponsors coming together to help develop the funding source for our event. So you see, I think, a great representation of Goldsboro here in terms of businesses that have already stepped up. We actually have a couple more that have committed since this slide presentation was created that you don't see up there, so we'll add those for future reference. And all of these are available on the website. So the concept is that when we get to the event, right now if you look on the website, it still shows a date of May 15th, and we have pushed that date out to September because we really wanted to make certain that when we put this event on, that our guest of honor, the first responders and the military troops, can actually come out and be part of what we're doing downtown. So the concept is that it's a week-long series of events from September 15th through September 18th, which happens to be the birthday of the U.S. Air Force, and it was their recommendation that we shift to that date. It is family-friendly in terms of design. Admission to the event is free. We believe, based upon how we're structuring it, that it will have a regional draw, so not just in and around Goldsboro. We really hope to bring people in from surrounding counties. It is led by a new nonprofit, which is NC Freedom Fest, with support from community partners, and the event costs are being supported through a sponsorship campaign. So to get you into kind of the mechanics of this, what will happen, key dates that we have: Saturday, August 14th, we'll do a kickoff party by design. That will be intended to kind of pay it forward to some of the sponsors and the key volunteers. That will be at the Elks Lodge in Goldsboro. Our hope is that a byproduct of that is that we'll end up with maybe 70 or 100 ambassadors that will be talking up the event over the course of the next 5 weeks. Then Thursday, August 26th, we'll do a history night. That will be at the museum. The museum, during World War II, actually was the base for the USO operations here in Goldsboro. So there's some really cool connections in terms of history that we can draw together and exhibit materials that are there. So we'll do a history night on Thursday, August 26th. Doc Heidecker will be making a presentation that evening. If you haven't heard Doc talk about history, he's fascinating. You can pretty much just drill into a topic and then sit down and listen. Then when we get to the week of Freedom Fest, on Wednesday during the day, we'll have a golf outing at the city's course. And the concept there is to have foursomes that are made up of maybe a couple people from the base and a couple people from the community to really kind of start driving some of that interaction. So that will be during the day. That evening we'll have movie night at the Paramount. By design, that will be free to the people that are attending. Our concept there is that mostly it will be airmen. The movie that we have scheduled is Red Tails. I think that will be a really big draw. We've not worked through the mechanics of how we're going to allocate those tickets yet. I think those are going to be very much sought after tickets. Then Thursday, the event will actually have some light programming. So picture kind of in the center of Center Street, we'll have live music that will start and stop early. Like one-man band kind of acts that will start and stop early. And the whole idea there is once they stop, then we're working with the Merchants Association to drive traffic to the merchants, to the restaurants, so that our hope is they'll have live entertainment in their sites as well. And that's Thursday. Friday, we will have an event similar to a Center Street Jam. In this case, it will be tagged Grub at the Hub. And so we'll have live music there that evening. We'll have food trucks. And I'll circle back to one element for Friday. And then Saturday, the main event day, we'll start with a 5K run downtown, starts and stops downtown. We'll have, we will come back to the council to ask for street closures, but we're not doing that tonight. So the concept is Center Street from Ash down to Spruce will really kind of be set up with different activities. So the first block would be a bike show, motorcycle show. The second block would be a car show. The third block would be craft vendors. And again, we're working with the Merchants Association to really kind of make this interactive so that if you can picture in your mind's eye merchants that have sidewalk sales going on and their doors open and kind of inviting people to come in. As you keep moving south, we'll have the main event will be down at the empty lot, 207 South Center Street, and at the Hub, and Center Street in between there. So in that area, we'll have static displays from the base. We'll have a chicken wing cook-off, so the Wings of Wayne will now be kind of part of NC Freedom Fest. We'll have a cornhole tournament, which is huge with the base. And the serious moment of the day that we have are the Military Appreciation Awards. So there we are emulating the same awards that are presented on base. But for most of us that don't have access to the base, you don't realize what awards are being presented. This is our opportunity to present those in public. The music that we will have, this is the lineup of artists. So for Friday, the 17th for Grub at the Hub, we'll have Soul Psychedelic, which is always a big draw in Goldsboro. Saturday for the main event, we'll have Tyler Davis. Our vision there is that he will set up somewhere kind of north on Center Street, not down at the main event site, somewhere around the car show, the bike show, the craft vendors. Tyler will take a pause so that Drummers World can come in and literally kind of march down Center Street and bring traffic, bring the crowd with them down to the Hub. So once Drummers World kind of exits from where Tyler is, then Tyler will finish his set. And we then have Sayer McShane that will lead off at the Hub. Once Sayer McShane is done, we'll shift over to a main stage that's being provided by the base. And Brooke McBride will be the first act on that stage. Brooke is a young woman from North Carolina who's starting to break big in Nashville. So it's a privilege to be able to get somebody like her to Goldsboro. But then our headline band, Parmalee, is a national touring band. They've been tracking with top chart music since 2016. They're originally from Parmalee, North Carolina, so just north and east of Greenville. They will be, did I say it wrong?
No, you're fine.
They
I was
will,
thinking about my son touring the United States with a band when he did.
Oh, okay.
They came back with less money than they had when they left.
It's part of the business, I suppose. They will be a big draw. So getting them back to eastern North Carolina is really a big deal for us. So the site, as I mentioned, is Center Street, and the main events at the empty lot at 207 South Center Street and the Hub. One element that I want to draw your attention to here is the Kids Zone, and this was really a suggestion made by the base. They're helping us, if you will, on our committees as we're developing the format for this, and they've explained that having the Kids Zone is a really important element to the airmen. We're going to talk more about that. This gives you a depiction of the site. So I couldn't really turn it on its, to stand this upright to make it work in the slide format. But you see to the right, it would be Ash Street and then Center Street coming down to your left, ending at the far left with the empty lot and the Hub. This depiction shows you really just the empty lot. So this is kind of the key point of discussion here. So you see in the southwest corner of the empty lot, so that would be James and Spruce Streets, kind of in that corner of the lot. It's our hope to establish kind of the Kids Zone. And the Kids Zone would be a series of attractions and rides that we could bring in. So We really feel like this element specifically is an essential one based upon the recommendation from the base. The cost for the kids zone is significant. The cost in terms of how we plan to cover it is through sponsorship. So Goldsboro Pediatric Dentistry and Orthodontics has already stepped up as a cash sponsor, which covers part of the cost of that. We would ask the council's approval to also open the carnival, the kids zone area on Thursday as a fee-based attraction when the merchants we're kind of driving traffic to the merchants, and then again on Friday when we do Grub at the Hub. So those 2 nights, we'd like council approval to have that amenity there on a fee basis with a military discount. So specifically, we're requesting that on Thursday and Friday, we have that function open. We know that that's in conflict with a statute that we have tripped over that is about 50 years old that's on the books, which I think the city manager will be able to speak to in a few minutes. So Saturday, it's our vision to have that amenity open free to the public from 4 to 7, and then from 7 o'clock on, right now our concept is that there would be a fee base for that, just kind of based upon demand.
I have a question. I know you said a military discount, but would you also give a first
responders discount?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. That's a great question. This gives you a depiction of what the elements are that we're talking about. So these really are kind of kiddie carnival rides. Part of what we see in the 50-year-old statute is that there's language that only somebody 12 or under can ride, and really with the military families that would create an obvious conflict where maybe junior can ride but the sibling can't or the parents can't, and we really want this to be a family-friendly setting that's very inviting. So these are the actual elements that we'd like to plan in that space. In summary, NC Freedom Fest is a military and first responders appreciation festival hosted by NC Freedom Fest, which is a 501c with approval from the city of Goldsboro and with strategic partners that are helping us fund it. It brings the base and community together in a family-friendly setting, downtown Goldsboro. It's a coordinated series of events from September 15th through the 18th, funded through a sponsorship campaign. Believe it or not, even in a COVID environment, we have been able to get people to support us. And frankly, it's overwhelming to see how people have stepped up to support what we're doing with this event. But we understand clearly that we need council approval in order to do what we're talking about doing in terms of supporting the vision for all of the elements that are there. And this is an opportunity for Goldsboro. The collaboration that I mentioned in one of the first slides with a bunch of groups that are working together, because typically you have individual events that are going on, and this is really bringing a lot of groups together. The one community tagline that you saw on the first slide was a suggestion from the base, which I think was just a really solid contribution they made early on. And one of the comments that someone from the base who has over 30 years with the Air Force shared, this is their 6th duty station. This will be the first time they've been in a community where the community puts on a military appreciation festival. So in my heart, we're doing this for the right reason. We're doing this because we recognize the sacrifices that those folks make so that we all have the freedom that we have. There's a whole different economic discussion that you could get into in terms of how much lift the base gives our community. But really, this is about doing the right thing to demonstrate our appreciation to the troops and to the first responders.
Okay. And, Kim, you want to talk about the statute?
Yes, so the carnival aspect has to deal with our general statute 111, which is about amusements. And basically we need to know if council would consider changing the statute to allow carnivals. Right now, carnivals are prohibited. However, kiddie carnivals are allowed, which allows riders from 12 years and under. And as Doug stated, we want to make this more of a family aspect, so older brothers or sisters could ride along with their parents in some of these rides. So it doesn't exactly fit the current definition. And if council would like to allow such thing, we will go back and make an amendment to bring back to you at the next meeting. So what Doug is asking for is, if council is amenable to that, that we can move forward. Obviously, there is a liability concern. The finance department has checked with our current insurer, and they would like a $5 million umbrella policy, which is greater than the current $1 million policy that we use for combined coverage of liability. And the other decision I think council needs to make is in the future, if we change this ordinance, at what level would it be approved if it's a city-sponsored event? In other words, do you want it all brought to council for a decision, or should the city manager make that decision? And in all cases, I think we should currently make it in support of a nonprofit effort. Any thoughts or discussions?
Anyone have any issues with the
I don't
concept?
see why the city manager can't make that call. It's a one-time event, unless we want to change it all the time, because we're going to start getting more and more requests for that vacant lot. And I can see that happening. Either way, it's fine. with
Right,
me.
so once you authorize the ordinance, you have to decide who's gonna make the decision on it. And so, I think we can generally make it that the city is in support of it, if it's a city department, or if it's a city mass event like Freedom Fest that we're supporting, then we can do that. But if it's a nonprofit that just wants to make money, for their nonprofit, which may or may not be I'm sure they're all good causes, but do you want that level of decision left with me or you?
Well, you'll bring back the proposed change to the
Right,
statute.
but I need you to kind of tell us what you want it to say.
I don't have any problem with you handling it.
I don't have any problem with it.
Okay.
I don't have any issue with that.
And I just have a question, just for point of clarity. I recall a few years back, in the parking lot where Hobby Lobby is currently, they would have like a Ferris wheel and carnival then. So what was the difference in the ordinance for them to have it and this?
So that would not be a city-supported event?
Okay.
Probably. So, do you want to generally allow it?
Well,
Or do you want it to be just city-specific supported event?
If the ordinance is gonna be updated, I mean, I would, citywide, I mean, as far as not just city-based, but if one entity is able to do that, I would like to see, it expanded where everyone could do it, I would assume. That way you wouldn't have to fine tune each event in each area,
Okay,
So-
then we can make it as such if no one has a problem with that, but it would still probably need to be signed off by the city manager.
Correct.
So we make sure all the
Yeah.
inspections are
Right,
done.
right.
Police, fire support, et cetera.
Definitely. I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, and certainly our ask is contingent upon us delivering to the city the certificate of insurance.
Sure.
With the right policy limits to protect the city of Goldsboro.
Sure.
Have we settled that particular issue? Because I have a question outside of that. Did we settle did we settle that you just mentioned? Because I have a question, but it's not pertaining to what we just discussed. I don't want to jump topics. Did we?
I think what I heard is that you all are generally okay with allowing carnivals in the city now. It just needs to come to the city manager for approval, and it does not need to be city-supported event. In other words, it could be done on private property someplace as opposed to city-owned property. Is that okay? All right, we'll write it up as such and bring it back for your decision at the next meeting.
That's fine with me.
Does anybody else have questions
I
for
do.
Doug?
So with the fee-based events, and I understand things cost money, I do. Do you have like a price range? Because while we're being inclusive to include the whole family, I would hate for some people to not be able to participate because of that. So do you have an idea of what that fee would be?
The vendor that we are working with is one that has history with the base. What they have suggested is in prior events that they have done, they'll charge, some of the amenities, some of the rides that we showed may cost one ticket, or you can buy a wristband.
Okay.
I think the price for the wristband for like the entire time they're open for the day is $15. So You know, I get $15.
Part of what you're doing is on Saturday, it's free from 4 to 7.
Right.
When the event's going. So,
Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment period discussion, and I think Councilwoman Jones asked that we come back and talk about the policy before we make any decisions on numbers.
Yes, first, I would like to thank the council for entertaining me to take a look at the previous policy that you already had in place, which was done in 2020, October 19th, 2020. And I think you have this in your packet. My main concern about public comments is conduct. That's my main concern. Number five, if you will look at number 5 with me, or if you've already read it, it says that the mayor would take reasonable steps to maintain order and decorum during the public comment period, and speakers are expected to present their comments consistent with the maintenance of order and decorum. In past, and as I said last meeting, I have seen a lot of the city council meetings, and they were not effective. And there was no decorum, and I was just really disappointed, and I think we, as a city council, must demand a type of order of conduct. So I looked at this, and I was really glad that some of the councilmen said this, because it says reasonable steps. And maybe it's a matter of semantics or whatever, but reasonable steps, I think that we should say provisions, and then we should outline those provisions. I have seen in the past when people come up to make their public comments, they've called people names, mumbled, got loud whenever their time was up. They did not respect the person in charge that said the time was up. And then when they did sit down in their seat, they continued to mumble, which interfered the next person that was going to speak. And I think that we as council, the city council, that we should not allow this type of behavior. You know, we have children and adults, we have elderlies watching our meeting. And for people to come up and cuss and disrespect one another, we are not setting a good example. So we should not allow that. So I really think here that we should indicate what the provisions are, which is, you know, maybe a warning, turn down the mic, and then ask to leave if those things are not followed. Number 4, I was looking at it, and it says 35 minutes, and this is just me. You know, you've already set up a 3-minute or 5-minute guideline in what you already have, but I said with 36 minutes with 3 people speaking, that goes, 30 goes into 36 bitterness. Yeah. Under number 7, I just would not we should not entertain name calling. I realize that I don't want to violate anybody's First Amendment. And this weekend, I've spoken to several of my constituents, and they do want a chance to talk, and they should. That was never, ever my intent to stop that. But these are the things that I was concerned about with like I said, I didn't even realize you had a public comment period policy. So I'm so thankful that you allowed me to go through this.
Anyone have any comments to Ms. Jones' comments?
I don't particularly have any comments to her because I agree with a lot of what you said. And I think that before we begin to make certain provisions, we can play with that word, but that still kind of translates to restrictions to me. Let's, as a council, commit to following the policy in which we have in place. And not only does that mean enforcing the policy, that means following the policy as well. I haven't seen too many incidences where a lot of name calling and different things was happening. Has there been instances? Yes, I've seen them. But I also want to hold the council accountable for following this policy as well. Because there's been times where someone at that podium was not arguing by themselves. And if we are going to set the standard, we need to be the standard. So I suggest that we go back to 2 times a month, and we commit to following this policy before we try to enact anything, because everything that Councilwoman Jones mentioned is right here in our policy already. Like if somebody begins to name call, this policy says we are to stop them. So I don't think we should, because I think it begins to be discriminatory possibly. I think it's too close of a line. We've had our city attorney to look at this several times. This is not the first time public comment. We've discussed it. We've discussed it in the past. We discussed it at retreats. We've discussed it at this last retreat. And I just think we should not begin to put stipulations and outline. I just think it's too close to restrictive, and our tax, our residents are tax-paying citizens, and they have the right to praise or criticize. That's their right.
I have no problem with 2 meetings per month, but I do have a problem with the individuals who violate our provision. I think they need to know what the consequences are. And we've said that here twice before we had this meeting. So I really feel that they need to know that they cannot do this. So that's where the provision comes in.
I just want to chime in. Just so we're clear, what we're looking at is an amendment to the original policy. So the
Yes.
original was 3 minutes at 10, possibly individuals at 30 minutes, whereas this was 7 at 5 at 35. That's one thing. And like I said, interpretation is a big word in this situation, because today, watching the trial, David Chauvin trial, the word reasonable policing was used multiple times. And we say reasonable, I'm quite sure we can agree that that was not reasonable with what
Right.
happened to that man. So that word needs to be kind of looked at
I agree.
from both angles. So my recommendation is to go back to the original pre-corona, the 10 at 3 possibly. You have more people that are able to speak. I know we spoke about redundancy in the last meeting. More people will be able to speak at 3 minutes as opposed to the 5 minutes. So if we were to just go back to the original prior to this amendment, I think it would satisfy, because like you said, if 7 people get up there and say the same thing, then that means the number 8 person doesn't have an opportunity to speak. Whereas if we had 3 minutes, we could possibly have 10 people speak. And I would hate to see a person such as my mom that's been wanting to come to these meetings for a long time, but being apprehensive due to the corona, but now she's gotten her shot, she's wanting to come out more. But if 7 people speak at 5 minutes and she's the 8th person and she's been wanting to speak, or now she can't speak. So I want to go back to the 10 at 3 minutes. And if you notice, we don't have that many people come. And if you notice, they're speaking a lot of, you're right, the same thing, but allow more people. And that's just a human thing. That's not we can put a policy. That's just being considerate. If I see 5 people and I know that they're going to possibly be talking about the same thing, that's just a human thing. That's just being considerate of others. And like you said, in the past, there's been a lot of inconsideration due to people speaking, and I understand that. So that's why I want to go back to the initial 3 minutes at possible 10. And if this is a opportune time to say, I'd like to make a motion that we
Well,
reconvene.
I want, oh, okay, I do want this word reasonable. I have a problem with reasonable. And I said that in the very
You
beginning.
did?
I do have a problem with that. And I really think that we need to take a look at that. And I really think that we, not to restrict anyone, but if I know that that can is going to burn me, then I'm not going to touch it because I don't want to be burned. So I think people need to know, because apparently they haven't known, that whenever they come up and their manner of decorum is not correct, that they're going, and we need to enforce it, they're going to be asked to sit down, and things are, they're not going to be able to speak until their decorum is better.
I'd just like to say one thing, and you and I have talked about this an awful lot, but I've been doing this 10 years, almost 10 years now. And I want to hear what the people say. The last thing we want to do is not let people say. But I'm telling you, we get the same people, at least 70, 65 or 70% are the same people every time they come up. They come up with personal agendas. They do get very disrespectful, both to the chair and that. And if we can keep those people out, I don't have any problems with going to one. But right now, we're still in COVID, and I'm tired of the theatrics, and I've been looking at them for 10 years, and it's the same people. And that's why I like one a month and let them speak longer. That's where you get it. So that's where I am.
Councilman Broadway, I don't mind them coming every meeting. I have absolutely no problems with that. And while you're being very upfront about it, a lot of the times it is the same people. I don't think we can bar them from coming up here and speaking their mind as long as they're respectful. That's my own personal feelings.
That is my main concern, is the decorum and the word reasonable. Those are my two concerns. I have no problem with two. Now, I do know that some organizations function effectively with one. Rule 37 said that we are in compliance with one, but I really don't care, whether we have one or two. My concern, and has always been, is the decorum. And once I read this and I saw reasonable, no.
And I think we need to give more credit to our officers that we have that take the time to serve during our meetings. I mean, to give them some level of, knowing their job. And I appreciate when y'all come out. I want to let you know that. But I think that they can kind of gauge the climate of if something's going to be.
That's great.
So that's all I have.
I'm going to come back to you in just a moment, Councilman Pollitt. Did you have, Councilwoman Jones, do you have a specific motion that you want to make concerning the language?
Yes, I would like number 5 to say provisions.
Provision.
Yes.
Can you read the sentence?
Okay, the mayor will take provisions to maintain order or decorum during the public comment period, and speakers are expected to present their comments. Everything is the same except the word semantics, reasonable. And then I really feel that, not that we're trying to limit them, but I really feel that they need to know if the provisions that the mayor is going to take, if their decorum isn't up to par, up to level.
Don't we have to define provisions?
Yes, and so under there would be 1, a warning, 2, however, I really don't care how we say it. I just want people to know that there are going to be provisions and it is going to be carried out. So it can be warnings, turn down mic and ask to leave. I have listened to a city council meeting when a person have stood there and cussed and called people names and would not sit down, would not go by the minutes that they had, would not respect the person in charge. And then, once they did finally sit down, they went in the audience and began to mumble. So therefore, the attention was on that person and not on the next person that was going to speak. And that's disrespectful. And any presider or anyone, chairperson, that is chairing an organization and do not want order in their organization, I don't understand.
Let me ask, okay.
So if
Mr.
I'm hearing
Simon?
everybody correctly, we can bring this back at the next council meeting for approval. And I believe everyone was in concurrence with going with 3 minutes for 30 minutes max per Councilmember Polak's suggestion, unless you want to go with 5 minutes for 35 like it is.
I'm going to ask for a motion. He wanted to make a motion. I'm going to ask for.
Well,
Okay, and then we can put in specific provisions that can probably work with Ron
Yeah.
offline to make sure it's correct. But basically, a warning that you're out of order, and then ask politely to leave, turn off the mic if required, and worst case would be escorted by the police department.
Exactly.
Okay. Does anybody have any problem with what Mr. Salmon just said in terms of bringing back a suggested
bring it back to us.
language?
I mean, next meeting's gonna be a public comment meeting anyway.
Right.
So it won't affect that one way or the other. But let's see what we can do from there forward. And like I say, I have no problems with going back to every meeting.
Can I just add one comment?
No.
So remember, it's a public comment period. It's not a public discourse period.
Right.
In other words, they have the right to speak.
Right.
Y'all don't have to respond. A lot of times what happens is you get off time because y'all start responding and start carrying on the conversation. Doesn't mean that you can't carry on the conversation maybe with them later or afterwards, but if you want to stick to the time limits and the time, and you want to stick to the subject matter, then part of that is not getting into a discourse back and
That's
forth with
right.
people.
I
Let them
agree.
comment, they comment, their time's done, next person comments. You take notes.
It's comment, not
That's right.
dialogue.
And so that would be one way to keep online, because otherwise you start talking to somebody and asking them questions. Now they're past the 3 minutes. Now they're into 5 to 7 minutes or 10 minutes. Now the next person that comes up is going to be, well, why don't I get the same consideration? You hold me to 3 minutes, and you talk back and forth with this person, for 10 minutes.
Right.
Well, whereas I understand that, city attorney, but again, if a resident has a concern here, and I have a question, or let's just say they're 3 minutes. So my thing is, I know so many people are sticklers for time, but I am willing to invest in the residents that come, whether that's 30 minutes or whether it goes to 32 minutes. If a resident has an issue and I have a question, and I want to ask that question, then I don't want to feel like I'm stifled not to ask that question because I'm worried about people meeting or fitting into this 30-minute block or window. Now, I do agree if we say, okay, if there's a question, maybe we can jot it down or I can reach out to them later, but okay, I understand that, and that's an option, but I don't want it to be said that we can't enter into a dialogue. Well, you can't tell me I can't enter into a dialogue, but I don't even want that to be put out there that we can't do that because we're so trying to stay in this 30-minute window. Again, it seems restricted. And if somebody comes up here and say, hey, I think you guys are doing a good job, then no, I don't think we have to go into a dialogue. But if somebody comes up here and says, hey, I want to know why you haven't responded to my email, I'm not going to look at that resident and say, we can talk about it later. I'm going to say, I haven't seen it, or I apologize, let me look at it, or something like that. So I don't,
And now that.
it still seems restrictive. It still seems restrictive, and I want us to be careful about that.
And just in the future, I've had a back and forth dialogue, but sometimes people are making inflammatory statement to evoke a reaction,
Yeah.
and we know that.
That's what I'm talking
And
about.
in certain cases, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna defend myself and represent myself if something is being misrepresented about me. And if that person is exhausted at 3 minutes, then they've exhausted at 3 minutes. I have time now to respond to their allegation or whatever. Now, the next person, I understand, you know, the counter for the 3 minutes, but once the red is out, and I'll let them talk. But then if they're gonna say something that's misrepresenting myself, then I'm gonna respond. And I'm not gonna just look at their 3 minutes and say, well, I can't say anything because that's gonna hinder. Now, the next person, now we have dialogue, you still should have, like I said, 10 people. If you just say, if we're going to 30 minutes, 10 people at 3, if we're going to 35, 7 at 5. But I think we'll have more opportunity if we go back to the old way that we had 3 minutes, 10 people possibly. Some nights we might have 3 people, you know. But if you know, to talk about the dialogue and not allowing us to interact in conversation, I mean, there are going to be some situations where somebody might call you out of your name or say you're not doing something, and I'm going to represent myself by responding to.
I just don't think we need to get into a debate.
Right, no doubt.
What I was gonna say, Councilman Polak, is we have a chance to defend ourselves.
Yes, sir.
At the end of the meeting during council member comments. And you can rebuke anything you want to at that time, or, you know, that's your time, and there's no time limit on that.
Okay.
Yeah, Councilman
That's-
Pollard,
yeah.
do you want to make a motion to change the time
Yes, sir.
allocated and the speaking time?
Okay, so I make a motion that we reconvene back to our twice a month meetings at 30-minute time period with 3 minutes per 10 people, and make also the recommended provision with decorum in relation to number 5 on the on Ms. Jones' decorum concern.
I'll
Is there
second
a
it.
Did you second? Okay, there's a second. All in favor of?
Well, hold on, we got a discussion.
Excuse me.
He, in his motion, I just wanted to be clear, city attorney, he said per 10 people. But before, if 30 minutes is 30 minutes, so somebody might come up and speak for a minute, that's 2 free minutes. So I don't think we should put
I understand, okay.
the 10
I retract.
person
okay.
thing in there.
So I retract that portion of the motion. We allow 30 minutes for that section. So with that necessary correction, and I appreciate you clarifying that, Councilman.
30 minutes with.
30 minutes. So
with
somebody
three-
uses
3
one-
minutes per.
Well, if somebody, like she said, if somebody uses 1 minute, and then you have one, you know, till that 30-minute time frame is utilized.
So there's no time.
But
Right.
no, everybody has 3 minutes.
Everybody has 3 minutes, but
Okay,
if-
all right,
you know,
just
so
want to
I'm saying.
clarify that. Any more discussion? So the motion is that we have public speaking twice a month, a time set for 30 minutes with 3 minutes per speaker authorized.
Correct.
That's the motion. All in favor?
Well, you didn't finish.
Excuse me.
And attaching the provision.
And the
of decorum.
provisions that we don't know yet what they're going to be, but they're going to come back to us.
I'm not gonna vote in support of something I don't know what it is.
That's the reason we should wait until next meeting, because like I say, you have public comment already, and he'll have it drawn up by then. What do you think of that?
It's better than me just saying yay, and I don't know what the provisions are, because I may not agree with them.
No,
So
I can
agree,
understand that.
yeah.
I can
So,
understand.
Councilman Hickok, let me ask you this. Since we're going to do that, can we at least accept the motion that we will reconvene to 2 meetings at 30 minutes max, and then we can tweak that part out later and just get that to push on the floor, since we all seem to be in consensus to that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the motion. And
As
we'll-
long as the provisions are not gone by the wayside. I will vote as long as we agree to look at the provisions. I will vote for the 2 times. But if we're gonna throw the provisions out, then I will not vote for that.
Okay, let me see if I can restate the motion here. We have a motion to have public speaking 2 times per month, a 30-minute time period with 3 minutes per speaker, period.
Maximum of 3 minutes.
I said 30.
Up to 3 minutes.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can we, I'm going to ask again for a motion for clarification. Okay.
So I make a motion that we reconvene back to our 30-minute time frame, twice a month meetings, each person having a 3-minute talking maximum.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Motion's carried 3-2.
What was that
Four,
count?
4-2, I'm sorry.
4-2.
4-2. And, okay. Next item on the agenda is CU 321 New Hope Place Apartments. And Mr. Lawrence, you were going to speak to that.
I did. After the last meeting, the last meeting we had, there were several rezonings that were up. There was the conditional use permit that was up for these New Hope apartments, or New Hope Place, and those motions were moving through, and there was a motion to deny the conditional use permit. Once that was kind of over and done with, Ms. Collins and I got back together, went back through to see exactly what was expressed in the motion. And under a conditional use permit, you can't just outright deny it if it meets other criteria. And as outlined by Ms. Collins, the conditional use permit application itself met the other criteria. In other words, it was one that was going to be, that type of a project is allowed in that area. And so to deny it, ultimately, the criteria that you have to end up using is under the UDO, which is section 2.2.8. And what we've discussed at this point, from this point forward, is to make sure that in the agenda packet itself, you see that in front of you, even though it's part of the ordinances and it's part of the law that's everybody's supposed to know about it. But then again, you don't remember it because we don't have these come up that often. We don't have it that often where a conditional use permit is denied, oftentimes when the planning commission has recommended approval. So the exact steps for the exact motion, which it means you have to make specific findings of fact from the evidence that was presented. You can't do any outside investigation on your own. It's only what you hear from the evidence that's presented at the public hearing to base your decision on. And there's certain other criteria that when you use that information, that also has to pass muster, so to speak. And so, again, we went back and reviewed it. We didn't hear any citation as to specific basis for why the conditional use was denied. And the 4 criteria that's outlined in the UDO, I've got a copy of that I was going to hand up to each one of you. Because it was not done properly, our position is we were not able to draft, and she's not able to draft the order to deny it. So we had to put it back on the agenda tonight and bring it back before you so that you go through the necessary steps to make the determination if you can deny it, and you have to base it on the criteria that's in the ordinance. So you probably don't have that in front of you. If you don't, I can bring it to you. I got a printed copy.
Does anyone need a refresher on what CU 321 is?
Anybody need this? No? Okay. Yeah, Ms. Collins is here. There's questions about CU 321. As far as to refresh your recollection on that, I think it was in your agenda packet as well, so you know which project we're talking about. And so again, for that discussion, if there's going to be a motion, there can be a motion made that you accept the planning commission's approval. That's still on the table because the denial wasn't proper last time. There will also be a motion to deny, but to do that, you're going to need to go through the specific criteria and have findings of fact cited in your motion that come from the information that was delivered in the public hearing itself.
Now, does this information that we get, just saying there's too much traffic on Kyler Best Road already, that is not a fact?
That is not acceptable. Actually, that's not competent evidence because lay witness testimony about traffic is not competent evidence. You have to have expert witness testimony, somebody from a traffic engineer, somebody from DOT, somebody of that nature that can come up and say, because otherwise what you're talking about there is considered a generalized fear. And that's essentially, I'm not going to recite the evidence, but I'm just saying if you think back at some of the comments that were made, it was generalized fear of what may happen. There wasn't any person brought in with specific traffic data that would say it was going to be violating or too much traffic for the area or whatever it might be. There was none of that.
Well, I think somebody did stand up and say that the count on Kyler Best Road was 9,200, right around there. And it was acceptable, according to DOT, to have 12,000.
City planner briefed that, I believe.
That is correct. That was just the average daily count that NCDOT shows in their models and their projections. So right now, the road is not at capacity.
It is in the afternoons and in the mornings.
So it's back on you for you guys to have a discussion about it any further, or any motions to be made, so that so it can be handled the proper way.
All right, is there a motion to approve the Planning Commission's approval of CU 321 New Hope Place Apartments? I'll make the motion. That we approve.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, Councilman, you made the motion?
Who's making the motion?
Councilman Broadway.
I'll second.
I did second.
Oh, you second, okay.
We can do it either way.
Okay. I made the motion, he seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, real quick. So Ron, we really don't, there's no choice, right? Because I understand why we made the decision that we made and why we made it. But because we cannot substantiate it,
Correct.
we pretty much, okay.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to be clear
Right,
on what
from the-
we're about to do, so the people understand.
Yeah, the legal technicalities that were there, had the people opposing it brought in some expert testimony or opinion testimony. You know, and it's not your job to tell them what they're supposed to do to bring in. The law is what the law is, and people are, when the law was published, then everybody's deemed to be knowledgeable of the law. Nobody has to tell you what the law is. That's why you can't say, well, I didn't know that was wrong, I couldn't do that. And so anyway, my point of that is, yeah, they would have to bring people in themselves to combat or to say, you know, this is going to be a problem and here's why. And it's somebody that's going to have, you know, reliable experience and expertise in the field, so they could be considered expert testimony. Their testimony is just considered lay witness testimony. And for that in and of itself is not sufficient.
So I have a question before we go any further. So the Tiffany Garden project, did that not fall under the same umbrella? Because we shot down that as well, but that's
Which
not
one?
the Tiffany Garden project?
That was for rezoning. Y'all
Okay,
denied
so-
the rezoning on that. That's a different standard. The rezoning
Okay.
doesn't require the same specific standard that the conditional use permit requires.
Okay.
It's just a different legal standard. That's a legislative thing. This is that was a quasi judicial hearing on the conditional use permit.
Gotcha.
Which required more substantiation with findings of fact.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
But once it met the criteria, because it met the application met the criteria, it's acceptable for that zoning already. So to shoot it down, you have to go a step further. And that's why the other you didn't, because it was just a rezoning issue.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? All in favor of approving the Planning Commission's approval of CU 321, raise your hand. Got 4. Thank you. Next item is new business. There's nothing on the agenda.
Can we ask them to
For new business?
confirm their vote? Can we ask them to confirm their vote? Because he called for a motion to approve,
Okay.
and those in favor of, and those against.
It's protected.
Because technically, they didn't call for the vote against, so
Just want to.
no vote would be,
Well, just confirm, no vote's going to be a no on that particular motion, which was
Okay,
to
'cause
approve
it's
the planning
zoning.
commission's approval of the
Okay.
conditional use permit.
okay.
You good on that?
I think so,
Okay. We
but,
had 4 that were in favor of granting the conditional use permit, because that's what the planning commission recommended,
right,
correct?
Correct.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, we have no new business, so I'll move down to the consent agenda.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. My first item tonight is authorizing the finance director to purchase from the Buy Board National Purchasing Cooperative The Buy Board National Purchasing Cooperative is a cooperative that has been formed by the National School Boards Association and several state school boards to streamline buying process for schools and municipalities and other public entities. It was developed to comply with state laws that require governmental entities to make purchases from an approved list of vendors who have gone through a competitive purchasing process. General Statute 143-129 establishes the state bidding requirements, and within the statute, Section E provides an exemption to those requirements. Paragraph 3 allows purchases made through a competitive bidding group purchasing program which is formally organized to obtain those purchasing services at discounted prices when two or more public agencies are involved. This particular program requires that the entity's governing board approve the authorization for staff or to approve staff to enter into that agreement. I have attached the agreement and the bylaws for the particular co-op board here. The reason that we are asking the City Council for approval is Rick Fletcher, that manages our Public Works Division, he has implemented a preventative maintenance program to exercise the water valves and fire hydrants. That was approved in the FY21 budget. He has a valve exercising truck that the board approved in the capital outlay of about $147,000. And because it is in the formal bid range, that's why we are asking for that. So instead of doing formal bid, we're looking to purchase from this cooperative purchasing program. It's more than the $90,000. So that's why we're asking you tonight to pass a resolution to authorize me to enter into an agreement with NSBA so that we can pursue the actual purchase of the valve truck for Mr. Fletcher for the FY21 budget.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
My second item is a resolution for an intent to standardize Christmas wreath decorations. City of Goldsboro currently owns 44 4.5-foot wreaths made by Mosca Designs, and we use it for decorating the city streets during the holidays. The city wishes to increase the number of wreaths to maintain the uniformity of the decorations. However, size, design, mounting hardware, etc. varies greatly between manufacturers. General Statute 143-129 establishes the state bidding requirements for the purchase of apparatus, supplies, materials, or equipment, and subsection E63 grants the city to the authority to exempt purchases from the bidding requirements when the standardization or compatibility is the overriding consideration. The council may standardize the current design and reevaluate if the design is discontinued, and additionally at 5-year intervals. And what we're asking for tonight is the City Council to pass a resolution to authorize the standardization to the Mosca Design Catalog Number BC 362 for the 4.5-foot wreaths in order to maintain uniformity of the decorations along city streets. This particular item will actually be in the FY22 budget, and it will be in the downtown development budget for those wreaths, and it's approximately going to be about a $40,000 expense. So, you know, with that, obviously, they're going to be required to have quotes, and so in lieu of having to go out and quote and then possibly get differing designs, so that's the reason we're asking for the standardization. So the question is not whether you're going to buy the wreaths tonight, it's just the standardization resolution that I'm asking for.
Now, what area of the city are you talking about we need that many wreaths?
I brought Miss Erin along so she can address those questions for you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hope you're all well. The area specifically is the new phase of streetscape. So currently the wreaths go all the way to the police and fire complex. So the wreaths would complete the number of wreaths that we have all the way down Center Street. So it would go all the way down to Elm.
I just don't know that there's that much traffic going down there. I mean, I don't know that we can justify that, I'll be honest with you.
So Aaron, this is just a question, you know. Is it possible to space them out? I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around $40,000 for wreaths. And I know that was just maybe a ballpark or what, but I'm just saying, is there a way to space it out?
Sure, we could do that. If we didn't want them to be uniform with the rest of Center Street, we could definitely do that. Or we could phase out the purchasing of them and purchase half in 1 year and half in the next. Again, tonight is not about deciding whether or not to purchase, but to standardize the purchase. We had some issues with just getting quotes from vendors, or really finding things that were similar to the current wreaths. And I will say, I was not here when the wreaths were purchased, and that does sound expensive, but when you think about the size of the wreath, they're double hung, so they're on both sides of the light pole. They're 4.5 feet. They have LED lights. They twinkle. They have bows. I mean, they're substantial. It's not something that you can go and buy from, you know, Amazon or anything like that. So this would be a continuation. But in 2012, we did go through the competitive process to identify a vendor to purchase the swags that go across. And with that, we also got information on the wreaths. So this all of this came from the same vendor. The current vendor that we used was selected during that competitive bid process, so they did have the best quote. And then in 2015, we purchased the wreaths that are that you see now, from mulberry to chestnut, or to spruce actually. So this would be finalizing that.
Okay, so when you say all we're doing tonight is giving you authorization to standardize, explain that to me. What does that mean exactly?
Okay. So, like I said, GS 149 establishes that we have to bid out, you know, if we're buying equipment, purchase, supplies and things of that nature. All right, so our purchasing policy, which follows statute, is going to say if it's more than $5,000, that department head has to get written quotes. If it hits the $90,000 threshold, we actually have to do formal bid.
Okay.
So in lieu of that, as she said, because we had our new procurement manager walking through this with Aaron, and he did find some wreaths, but then when you start looking at the construction of the needles, the lights, the heart, everything was so much different, and then it looks possibly mismatched, you know, color differences and things like that. So it is very difficult, if you're trying to present a unified appearance, to find somebody else that's going to make the exact same product. So what we're asking for is that you allow us to exempt, which you are allowed to do by statute, to say that we don't necessarily have to go through the competitive bidding process, that over 5,000, that would put Aaron in the position of, well, just because it's the cheapest, it may not even match, and then we've spent a lot of money. So we're only asking you to allow us to standardize so we can exempt it from the competitive process, the purchasing process, that's all.
Yeah.
So the decision, as far as a budgetary decision, as whether you think you should or shouldn't spend that amount of money, whatever it is, it's $400 for a double wreath or whatever it is, that decision you can make whenever it comes up to budget time.
Right,
And then
okay.
if you say, no, we don't want to do that, then that's your option. All this does is just help me with the purchasing aspect of it, so we stay in compliance with the law.
I understand that.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Yes, ma'am.
I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other comments on this item?
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
We got one more, I believe.
Catherine, I got one other question.
Yes, sir.
You finished now?
Yes, sir, with that
I
item.
just, quickly, where's the audit?
Oh, sure, okay. So, I completed, last night before I left, I completed responses to findings, and I have reviewed the management representation letter, which is really like the last piece that I have to do. The manager is going to have to review that. I'm expecting the audit to be issued anytime now. You know, I hope this week, you know, but I can't tell, you know, something, an emergency may happen, but it's my expectation within the next week or two that it is actually going to be issued. We have to have the LGC has to look at it, review it. I've been in contact with LGC, you know, every week. And they have assured me that when we have it ready to send to them, that they will start working on it. So we are very close to the end. And then what we hope is One of the meetings in May, probably the second meeting most likely, we will have them do the presentation to the council, and I'll probably have like a brief presentation possibly before that, and then let them come and talk to you about the audit.
Thank you for the work.
Yeah, well, I thank my staff and I thank everybody that's helped us get through it, because it's been a journey, to say the least. Okay, my last item I have is resolution to approve or reject authority for purchase contracts. Again, we're talking about General Statute 143-129, which establishes those state bidding requirements for the purchase of apparatus, supplies, materials, or equipment. It allows in subsection A, paragraph 2, that the governing body may, subject to a dollar restriction or other condition, elect to impose the ability to delegate to the city manager or the manager's designee the authority to award contracts, reject bids, or re-advertise or receive bids on behalf of the city. The budgeting process of the city, the council approves and allocates funds for the purchase of certain apparatus, supplies, materials, or equipment. State purchasing laws require council to approve expenditure or procedures for the letting of purchase contracts when the expenditure exceeds $90,000. By granting the city manager the authority to award or reject bids in the purchase contract formal range, it would expedite the procurement of goods and equipment for departments and assist with their daily responsibility. And so what we're asking for tonight is for the council to grant the city manager or the manager's designee the authority to award purchase contracts, reject bids, or re-advertise to receive bids on behalf of the city. And I do want to be very specific that this is for the equipment, supplies, and things of that nature. This is not construction contracts. So we have to, formal bid for construction is more than $500,000. That always has to come to council, always. So that there is no exception to that. What we're talking about are things like police cars, police equipment, wreaths. We're talking about pipe and fittings. So I'm talking about tangible goods is what I'm talking about. If the council wants to limit that and say, well, okay, it's in formal bid range at $90,000, we would like for you can do that from $90,000 to $500,000 or $90,000 to $1 million. That is completely the council's discretion to do that. The only issue that we have is that even if it is on state contract or a cooperative, as you've heard tonight, we still have to bring it back to council. And I will tell you, probably there have been many times in the past, before my coming, that did not happen. I've probably let a couple slip by just with workload, and so, we probably haven't brought everything, it might have been on state contract. So what we're trying to do is to kind of expedite that, so if the department has the need, it has been approved by the budget of the council, that if it's over the $90,000, then we can have the authority to approve it. But if you don't want to do that, that is perfectly fine. Just remember, anything that the council approves, whether it's the state contract or it's in the formal bid range on this apparatus supplies, any change orders you have to approve. So it does bring more paperwork back to the board. I have no, one way or the other. This is just to help the departments and to help process. So it's entirely up to you. You can add a limit or you can not do it at all. It's entirely up to you. But I at least wanted to bring it to your attention that the exception did exist.
Here's my problem with that. You've got to, and I'm not saying it would happen. It could happen. It has happened. Not maybe in Goldsboro, but other places. Here, department head, say they need plumbing fittings and pipe and all that, and they go out to XYZ supplier and say, listen, charge us 20% more, I'll take 10% and you can have 10%. I mean, I think it leaves us open for that.
Well, and we still require the competitive process. So if it's more than the $5,000, they are required to get 3 written quotes. That's in the informal range. If it is more than $90,000, it has to be formally bid. So that's advertising, and then we take the lowest responsive bidder or state contract. So they are allowed to do that. So we do enforce the competitive purchasing requirements by general statute and by policy. And what you're talking about, I mean, certainly that can happen. I think that's where you have staff and you have internal control and you're monitoring those relationships just to make sure that you don't have that. And can you say absolutely unequivocally it's not going to happen even with all the rules? I mean, yes, it can happen. I mean, obviously, if people want to be dishonest, they can definitely be dishonest. So.
Any
That
other
could happen
comment?
if it comes back to council as well.
Sure.
It's just that council is making, sure, asking those questions, but, I mean, that's Catherine's and my job as well, so.
So we carry out that purchasing policy, and we are responsible for carrying out what the general statutes have as far as the competitive bidding requirements. And so we are talking about, again, apparatus, supplies, and materials, not formal construction contracts. But like I said, if the council is comfortable, I mean, I'm perfectly fine either way. So just be aware, if we decide not to do it, that there may be an uptick on some things that you are going to have to approve, so.
I would just say if there's concern on the voting, maybe we move that to item requiring individual action so it doesn't hold up the consent agenda.
And, Ms. Catherine, so if we don't agree, this is just, so if we do nothing, then it stays the same? Like it's
It
always
is, we
been?
follow what statute says, so
Right.
what I'll have is at the next meeting, I will bring back an item to approve a cooperative purchasing contract to buy the valve exercise equipment, back for the council to approve that.
Mhm.
Does anyone want to move this to, okay. All right, thank you. Ms. Felicia?
Good evening, everybody.
Yeah.
So I was before you at last meeting discussing our marker memorial policy for the Parks Recreation Department. And so I have before you this evening an agenda item where I'm bringing it back, asking for your approval for us to go through with the amendments that I shared with you, or I should say the edits that I shared with you at the last meeting. So again, just to refresh everyone's memory, the current policy requires nominees for markers to have been at least 70 years old and a resident of the city of Goldsboro a minimum of 30 years. The current policy does not have a residency or time requirement for memorials, because again, this is the marker or memorial policy. So staff, we're recommending updating the policy by removing the age requirement and the living memorial option. In addition, staff recommends all nominees be a resident of the city of Goldsboro at some point in their life. And again, you should have the edited recommended policy that was put in your agenda packet. So the recommendation is, by motion, adopt the resolution amending the policy governing the acceptance and placement of markers and memorials within city parks and play areas. Any questions?
Any question? Okay, thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Salmon?
Melissa?
Item K is your Commission on Community Relations and Development appointment. And this is just replacing Ms. Jones with Mr. Pittman. And you guys talked about that on the March 15th work session, and this would just be the official resolution appointing Mr. Pittman and congratulating or thanking Ms. Jones for serving on the Community Relations Commission.
Any comment? Okay. The department reports were in the packet that you received, and
You
Simon, you have any?
still have the city attorneys?
And item L.
I'm sorry?
We still have item L
Item L.
in the consent agenda.
Resolution.
It's a resolution authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute the Second Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding with the County of Wayne. This is regarding the placement of the hotel at the Maxwell Center. You may remember this was a closed session discussion at the last meeting. Presentation was made of the different options and layouts and the acceptance of where that layout was going to be. So in your agenda packet, you got a copy of the proposed agreement. and the change, and also the exhibit that's going to be attached, which shows the layout of the property. If you recall, that became an issue because they needed more of the acreage. So it's up to 4 acres for them to put the hotel on it. That left the best placement of the other 2 parcels, given the best sort of opportunity to have 2 restaurants there. Opposed to other layouts where maybe only leave room for 1. You all approved that during discussion, or recommended that during discussion in closed session. So tonight, just bring it back formally for y'all's authorization of the city, of the mayor and the city clerk to execute that agreement, which reflects those additional changes, and that being the second amendment to that MOU. Any questions?
Anyone have a question?
And the other portion was that the city would be,
Right.
69,000 owned for retention pond.
Correct. So that they cut that in half. And we don't pay that until we sell the other 2 properties.
Any other comment? Okay, this completes the consent agenda items. Have a motion to recess until 7 o'clock.
Make a motion that we recess and come back at 7 o'clock.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. This is the formal council meeting of April 19, 2021. Meeting come to order and roll call, please.
Would you like to do the invocation first?
Excuse me?
The invocation?
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
This is, I was looking for,
He's
oh,
here.
here are Bishop. Sorry. Please stand.
Good evening, Bishop. Shall we pray? Our Father and our God, we thank you for the gathering today of the minds of this great city. Father, we thank you for wisdom. We thank you for honor. And we ask you, Lord, to give direction tonight. Let these who have been elected to carry us through in this next journey in our future for this city. Father, we thank you in advance for what you're getting ready to do. Bless all the people in this city as they begin to lead us in to this next level. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Bishop. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we can do the roll call.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Ham.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Broadway.
Here.
Councilmember Polak.
Present.
Councilmember Matthews.
Present.
Councilmember Aycock.
Here.
And we have a couple of distinguished visitors here tonight. I'd like to mention that there's lots of distinguished people here tonight, but a couple of people in particular. We have the current House Majority Leader, Mr. John Bell, and the former House Majority Leader, Mr. Phil Baddour. Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your appearance. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. Have a minutes for the work session and regular meeting of March 1st, 2021, and the minutes of the work session and regular meeting of March 15, 2021. I have a
Move to
motion to
approve.
approve.
Second.
Move.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please raise your hand. At this time, we're going to have some presentations. And the first one is the I-42 dedication resolution, and it will be presented by Mr. Derwin Stevenson, who is the Executive Director of the US 70 Corridor Commission and a former North Carolina State Board of Transportation member. Mr. Stevenson, would you come forward, please?
Mr. New, I have trouble talking with that thing on, so all right, I'll take it off. I thank y'all for allowing me to come and offer this recommendation, and I believe y'all have discussed it in detail. It's like it's honored Mayor Allen night tonight, so another honor coming shortly, but we have Gus Tullis, the former DOT board member in this division, recommended that we name a portion of the Goldsboro bypass after Chuck. He was one of the leaders in getting that bypass funded several years ago, and so he suggested that a portion of it. So talking about naming, the plan here, as y'all have done in your resolution, is to name a section, about a 5-mile section from Highway 13 to Beston Road, approximately 5 miles, and be named the Mayor Chuck Allen Honorable. So with that, I beg your indulgence and hope you'll vote for this resolution, and we can have that ceremony sometime in a short distance.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson.
I make a recommendation, I make a motion that we rename part of Highway 42 and Chuck.
Motion has been heard. Second.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion as presented, raise your right hand. This time we have a special presentation, and I'm going to ask Mr. Phil Baddour to come forward, please. do that for Cody.
How are you, sir?
Chuck, you're looking
I just want you to sit right there for just a minute. I want you to sit right over there. Because I'm gonna talk for a minute, and Ms. Blankenship, can I turn my back a little bit on y'all? 'Cause I'm gonna
You can
face-
take your mask off too.
Oh, thank you very much. Mayor? Yes, sir. It's my distinct honor and privilege tonight to be able to present the order of the longleaf pine. And the governor wishes that he could be here. We will hear from the governor before the evening is over by video. But I want to make a few remarks first. Chuck, your service to this community has been legendary. In 1999, you were elected to city council, served on the city council for, 15 years, and you've been mayor now for 6 years, and you've given 100% for this community. Anybody called you to do anything, and my friend, you have absolutely done it. Whether it was serving on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, or chairing the Metropolitan Goldsboro Commission, or chairing the Wayne County Development Alliance, whatever it is, you've done it. The Highway 70 Commission, you've been such a big part of advocating for Highway 70, and that bypass wouldn't be there without your advocacy. We all know that. And perhaps most importantly, or as importantly as anything, is your support for the military. We all know what Seymour Johnson Air Force means to this community, and Chuck has been there, in a leadership role every step of the way. He serves on the state commission, the Military Affairs Commission, and he advocates for Seymour Johnson fiercely and very, very successfully. And with the council here, and this is, Chuck, leadership is not just doing things yourself, it's bringing people along. And you're great at that, and I think it's great that we can reflect on some of the things that have happened in Goldsboro in the last 22 years. I mean, we are here in downtown, beautiful downtown Goldsboro, and I was here in its heyday, and I saw it go down, and I've seen it come back up, and it's just a magnificent thing, and your leadership has just been such a big part of it. The Goldsboro Event Center, my daughter's going to get married and have a reception there, believe it or not. Thank you very much, Mayor. In May, a beautiful place that y'all have done for this community. The W.A. Foster Recreation Center, a magnificent facility. And the Bryan multi-sport, I'm going to call it the soccer center. It's the first partnership between the Air Force and the community in the United States of America. I mean, that was a complicated thing to do. It even took lawyers getting involved. But it was your leadership that played such a tremendous role in it. I could go on, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to end by saying you have, over these many years, shown your love for this city and the people of this city. And I can assure you that tonight I speak for this city and the people of this city that saying, we love you, Mayor. We love you deeply. And it's my privilege. Come on up here now. It's time to come up and let me present you with the Order of the Longleaf Pine to Mayor Chuck Allen. And it says, they say you always have to read it.
Well, I can't.
Well, I'm going to read it. Lloyd Cooper, Governor, reposes special confidence in the integrity, a man of integrity, learning, yeah, you got that too, and zeal, definitely zeal, with Mayor Chuck Allen, and I do present and confer the Order of the Longleaf Pine. And then you're entitled to recite this poem wherever you want to recite it. Here's to the land of the longleaf pine, the summer land where the sun does shine, where the wheat grows strong and the strong grow great. Here's to down home, the old North State. Mayor Chuck Allen. Where do you want him to sit so he can see? Chuck, you sit right there. And so the governor can't be here, but he's got a few words to say to you.
Hi, everybody. Governor Roy Cooper here. Congratulations to my good friend, Mayor Chuck Allen, on becoming a member of the Order of the Longleaf Pine, the state's highest honorary society. You're joining the company of so many remarkable North Carolinians who dedicated their lives to serving our great state. Chuck, for more than 20 years, you've helped make Goldsboro and the surrounding area a better place for people to live and work and play. Your leadership as mayor has brought new life to downtown Goldsboro, and you've been a champion for our Seymour Johnson Air Force Base service members and military families. You've been strong in the face of hurricanes and floods, and you have fought for people who are struggling. Your love for this community is clear to anybody you meet. Thanks to your efforts, Goldsboro is an even better place for people to work, play, worship, and raise a family. I am so grateful for your leadership and dedication, and I want to welcome you, Mayor, to the Order of the Longleaf Pine, and you know what that means. It means that anywhere in the free world, you're allowed to give this toast. Here's to the land of the longleaf pine, the summer land where the sun doth shine, where the weak grow strong and the strong grow great. Here's to down home, the old North State. My friend Chuck, thank you so much for your courage and for your leadership and for your friendship. Congratulations.
Well, Mayor, it's my turn. In 2013, I got elected to represent the portion of Wayne County Untitled Assembly, and Chuck took me under his arm and explained to me how important the city of Goldsboro was. At that same time, we had a little issue with some wind turbines that were out in northeastern North Carolina. And before I went to the committee room to work on my first bill as a new member, the mayor gave me a piece of advice. He said, "Hey, it's a no-fail option. If you screw it up, don't come home." And ever since then, we've built a friendship, whether it's working in the community, a look at what we've been able to accomplish by helping our community rebuild after Hurricane Matthew and Florence. You know, a lot's been talked about your work here in the city and county, but the mayor also stepped up and went to Raleigh and advocated for the citizens of this county and this city on your behalf. And he also did it by serving on the State Military Affairs Commission and making sure that Seymour Johnson was well represented. And for the first time, we actually were able to play offense instead of having to defend our base. And so in our community, our base is better off. And so, Mayor, the North Carolina General Assembly Certificate of Acknowledgement on behalf of Representative John R. Bell, Representative Jimmy Dixon, Representative Raymond Smith, Representative Don Davis, and Senator Don Davis and Senator Jim Perry presents the certificate to Lawrence Chuck Corbin Allen for his service to the city of Goldsboro, Wayne County, and the state of North Carolina. And on behalf of our delegation, we had this North Carolina flag on our General Assembly in your honor.
Hey, John, let him get a photo of you fast. Okay, this time I would like to have a motion to excuse Mayor Allen from the remainder of the meeting.
I'd make the motion to excuse Mayor Allen from the rest of the meeting.
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. You're excused, sir.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate y'all coming in and calling me in. I appreciate y'all doing such a nice thing.
Good to see you, Phil. Hey, can I meet your partner, Mr. Hill? Thank you, John. Thank you so much. Appreciate what you did for the family. Appreciate it. Thank you, Padre. Thank you.
see the mayor here.
You look good.
He did, he looked good. Okay, at this time, we're back at item D on presentations, and I'm going to take the liberty of reading this for myself. And if we have people here representing Marty or on his behalf, please come forward. And I'm going to join you.
That's a distinguished group. That's good.
I first met Marty Cheddar about 8 years ago. Marty is a quiet, unassuming individual, but behind that facade was a man that was a real dynamo. He exhibited a passion for history like no one I've ever met. He took on projects that were given to him, projects that he initiated himself with the same zeal that he would give to any other project or anything else. And I had hoped when this came to my attention that Marty would be standing here tonight. Unfortunately, Marty passed away last Thursday and could not be here. These ladies here knew him much better than me, and they will speak in a moment. But I'd like to read this proclamation. Marty Chatter Day Proclamation. Whereas Marty Chatter served many years as a local historian, local history librarian at the Wayne County Public Library. And whereas Marty researched, cataloged, collected, interviewed, and presented programs concerning Goldsboro and Wayne County's history, including our historic baseball heritage, board and manufacturing, Dewey Brothers, and other topics. And whereas Marty supported, assisted, and encouraged numerous individuals in their search for genealogical and other personal historical quests. And whereas Marty spoke to many local civic and 501c3 organizations about fascinating and little known data from our past. And whereas Marty has been a friend, a role model, and advisor to countless local citizens. And he is clearly missed, and dearly missed as well, every day by one and all. Now therefore, I, David Ham, Mayor Pro Tem of Goldsboro, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim April 20, 2021 as Marty Chatter Day in Goldsboro, North Carolina. In witness thereof, I have unto set my hand and affix the seal of the city of Goldsboro, North Carolina, this 19th day of April 2021. Who wants to speak?
Do you like take this down?
Sure.
Well, first I'd like to recognize Emily Will and the effort that she took on behalf of the Wayne County Historical Association to recognize Marty's service to our community in this way. Marty loved the city of Goldsboro. He loved the long, rich history of Goldsboro, and he loved telling those stories to anyone that would still stand long enough to listen, right? And nothing thrilled him better. He loved the people of Goldsboro, and he loved their stories. And it mattered to him that every single story was told, that every single voice had equal value. And so I am just so delighted that you chose to recognize Marty in this way and his service to our community. And I want to thank the city of Goldsboro for that.
Thank you. I would just add that Marty had a very distinct and unusual personality, so that anyone who ever met him will never forget him. If you gave him a choice of some sort of project you needed help with, he would not stop until he finished. And he made sure that you knew he was working on it, and he would try to get you involved. He was a character that will never be forgotten by the people who worked with him, and we're so fortunate that we had the opportunity to get to know him.
Well, he was a friend, a colleague, and a collaborator with the Wayne County Museum. We worked on a lot of projects together, and he he will be missed. That said it all. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies, you can stay if you like, or you can choose to leave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is National Service Recognition Day proclamation, and I'm going to ask Ms. Jones to read the proclamation.
National Service Recognition Day Proclamation. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of American character and central to how we meet our challenges. Whereas the nation's elected leaders are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism to engage their residents to help tackle their greatest needs. And whereas AmeriCorps and the AmeriCorps senior participants address the most pressing challenges facing our communities. They help our nation recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, educate students for the 21st century jobs, fight the opioid epidemic, respond to national disasters, and support veterans and military families. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve. And whereas AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps senior participants serve in more than 40,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. And whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organizations they serve, both through their direct service and by managing millions of additional volunteers. And whereas national service represents a public-private partnership that invests in community solution and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and to increase the return to tax dollars. And whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, patriotism by making an intensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. And whereas AmeriCorps shares a priority with local leaders nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, strengthen communities, and is joining with local leaders across the country for the National Service Recognition Day on April 6, 2021. Now therefore, I, Dave Ham, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Goldsboro, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim April 6, 2021 as a National Service Recognition Day and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our community, to thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to the communities. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the seal of the City of Goldsboro, North Carolina, this 19th day of April 2021.
Okay,
We
Ms. Allen?
we do have a couple of ladies here.
Oh, that's all right. I'm sorry, ladies, I didn't.
And even though I've read the proclamation, please come up because you guys are very, turn around this way.
These are our oldest. They each are 88 years old.
Wow.
Both programs, Twice Grandparent and Senior Companions, are for senior volunteers. And even through the pandemic, they have been resilient and they are so determined to continue serving our community. And so tonight we thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and to all of the council members for giving them the opportunity to come, to be on television, be photographed. When you get to be 88 years old, those kinds of things are very important. So we are so grateful to you all for recognizing the wonderful things. The foster grandparents serve in schools, Head Start centers, and our senior companions actually serve in homes. So they're preventing people from being placed in nursing homes by doing personal things for them in their homes.
And I would like to personally thank you because your lives have impacted many of my family members. And I really, really do appreciate you. And I know most of you.
They've been around a long time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies.
Excuse me.
Simon, next item on the agenda, Employee Performance Award.
So I'd like to present the Employee of the Quarter Award, third quarter fiscal year 2021, has been awarded to Rodney Exum for outstanding achievement. If I could get Rodney to come up. Rick, why don't you come up too?
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Thank you.
And your team. How are you doing, sir? Good to see you. Why don't you guys stand over here to the side while I read this, and then I'll give you the floor. Rodney Exum sets the example for others to follow. He assisted the Meals on Wheels cause and donated his time to deliver meals to residents of the city of Goldsboro. Rodney assisted with an emergency bypass line installation. His efforts averted sewage from entering the Neuse River and saved the city approximately $25,000 per day in environmental fines. He used cameras to examine a total of 1,325 feet of building sewers. He also identified the cause of and resolved sewer stoppage issues to 5 customers' homes. Rodney has worked diligently to receive water distribution and sewer pipeline assessment certifications. He has significantly increased his job proficiency in the distributions and collections section. Rodney's selflessness and attention to detail are excellent examples for his peers to follow. He is a proven performer with a bright future ahead of him. Rodney Exum's accomplishments reflect well on himself and the city of Goldsboro. Thank you, Rodney. If anyone else would like to say some comments, and then we'll take a picture. Rick, anything to add?
It represents well on public works, but then like I said, the city and public works very well. One of our better team members, so we thank you for all the good every day.
Awesome. We'll take a picture now, guys. Hold right here in front.
Ma'am, do you get your pictures?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Want to come up closer? We can get another one.
Can I get one without your mask?
Okay.
Or
Are you
if
good with
he
that?
wants to be without his mask.
Okay.
I don't want to be with- I know you don't want the mask to reflect.
Thank you, Rodney. Appreciate it. Are there any comments you want to share?
I'm just thankful and blessed.
Whoops, why don't you just speak that way, please? Okay, you did.
I'm just saying, I'm thankful and blessed for this award. Wouldn't have made it without the Lord. And I want to thank my wife and my family and my work family. Thank you all.
Very good.
Now for the supervisor of the quarter, Brad Hannett. Come on out of the room over there, Brad. Appreciate all the support you give us for every council meeting, everything else. Let me read this citation. Brad goes above and beyond the call of duty every day. Having to adjust to a new way of life and operating procedures for the city due to COVID-19, Brad responded in a highly efficient, exceptionally timely, and utmost professional manner. Through every virtual meeting, Adopting new ways of utilizing technology, Brad enabled the City Council, citizen boards, and employees to accomplish their mission with the transparency expected from local government. Brad has looked for quick solutions that are cost-effective and able to be implemented on short notice with minimal impact to the end user. He has been involved in all aspects of setup and operating the technology behind the scenes. Since October 1st, 2020, IT staff have set up 264 virtual meetings, which includes council and board meetings that are streamed live and staff meetings. Brad has worked extensive hours to ensure these meetings are supported by IT staff, has always proven to be adaptable, and has maintained a positive attitude through it all. Brad Hanat's accomplishments reflect well on himself and the city of Goldsboro. Thank you, Brad. You the man. Let's take a picture here if you don't mind. You want to take off your mask for this, okay?
Keeps us all straight on our teeth.
Thank you. Any comments?
Floor is yours. Well, I'll just thank everybody on all the different boards and everything. Everybody's been very good at communicating, you know, when you're going to have a meeting. I know all the commission boards have been way ahead of time, so that's always helped. And everybody works in the IT staff, because I'm not done this by myself. So everybody else has been running some of the meetings and setting up, and so it's been a great help. So thank you.
Okay.
Go back to the consent agenda items, items G through M.
Yes, sir. Presented for council approval.
Move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand.
That roll call.
Roll call, wait.
Mayor Pro Tem Ham,
Yeah.
Councilmember Jones,
Here.
Councilmember Broadway,
Yes.
Councilmember Polak,
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews,
No.
Councilmember Aycock.
Yes.
Okay. We don't have any items requiring individual action, so I'll go to the next item, city manager's report.
Yes, sir. I'd like to mention that the Paramount over the last 2 weeks has had 13 rental use days, 7 public performance, and 5 live stream events. So they are open for business at 50% capacity, as well as the GEC should people like to use that facility. The Goldsboro Fire Department had an excellent meeting during the graduation of the Fire Academy class on Thursday night at the GEC. I appreciate what Chief Farfor and everybody did over there. Appreciate the fire department personnel who train these new graduates and will mentor them in the future. Many thanks to the families as well for giving us these great individuals. I'd like to mention the litter sweep that went on Saturday. We had 7 groups, an estimated 100 plus volunteers support the cleanup activities. Thank you very much for that. That's all I have, sir.
Council members report. I'll start with you, Ms. Jones.
Yes, I would like to thank our summer sweep turned out really well for District 1. I would like to thank Bobby Harvey. He is one of our CCAs for the District 1. I would also like to thank my church family for coming out, helping move some of the harder things so that we wouldn't have to ask the city, and to the Bridge Church for supplying food and drinks after we finished. So that was good. Thank you so much. And we have just begun working in our district, and I'm calling on my district. I will be talking with you even more. My constituents, I do want to hear from you, and I will be speaking with you, and look for a newsletter soon. Thank you.
Mr. Broadway.
I'd like to congratulate all of the people who received awards, but I just have to say something about Chuck Allen and what a special person he's been. And I've known Chuck in business and here, for over 10 years. I knew him a long time in business before that. But I know of no one that loved Goldsboro more than he did. And all the things he did for Goldsboro that very few people knew about. And some things he did, he never took salary. He gave that as awards for our employees here at the city. He did so many things that people know. He loaned out his farm. He worked everywhere. The only thing he did bad was drive. If you rode with him to Raleigh, you took your life in your hands. I'm telling you. And Gene, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was, but he's here. Nobody loved Goldsboro more than Chuck Allen. And now, more than anything, I ask that all of us pray for Chuck and his family and hope that somehow he can beat this horrible thing. That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
Yes, I just like for continue to pray that the nation, that justice will be served in this country, as we are living in a climate where it's black and brown are being targeted and killed by some of those that are sworn to protect us. I myself was followed and pulled by an officer the latter part of last week. It was infuriated, but more importantly was scared due to the killing of a young black man that occurred 2 days prior to my stop due to a similar situation. I was, however, able to follow up on the stop and was reassured that there was a glitch in the system from the driver's license HC side of it, and the officer was very courteous. But it is a sad time when an individual that has done nothing wrong to be in fear. So I solicit local and widespread prayer moving forward to correct the injustices that we are seeing across the nation, and we do need healing at this time. I also like to say congratulations to the Fire Academy that just recently graduated. I wish I could have been a part of that ceremony. So I wish you best luck and good luck and best wishes moving forward. Thank you for what you do. That's all.
No comment, thank you.
No comment. Tonight, we witnessed achievements by two special individuals here in Goldsboro. One of them was with us tonight. That was Mayor Allen. The other one should have been here, but he passed away too early in life last Thursday. You heard his compliments. You heard the great things said about Mayor Allen. These are two individuals in their separate endeavors that tried to devote their life to making Goldsboro a better place. Mayor Allen is still with us. He looked great tonight, and it was nice to see him. But I saw the love for this man exhibited by tears from people during the ceremony. Comments have been made about him, and I made comments, and the ladies made comments about Marty Cheddar. We have a lot more people like that in Goldsboro that are doing their, making their contributions every day. And we hope that that continues so as to make Goldsboro a better place for all of us to live. I have nothing further. If there's no other business, I'll call the meeting adjourned.